Hey guys, this is the installation video for the dual battery kit for the 3rd gen Toyota Tacomas. I'm Shane Smith, the owner of Genesis Offroad, and in this video I'm going to show you what comes with the kit, how to install it, and a few tips at the end on how to get the most out of your Genesis dual battery system. Now, this video assumes you already know what the Genesis dual battery system is all about and how it works. If you need more information about the hows, the whys, the whats of this system, watch our other videos. I'll explain it all in detail about why you need it and what it does for you. So this video is going to assume you already know all about it and you're ready to get it installed. So let's get to it. Okay, let's start off by showing you what comes in the kit. You're going to get this heavy-duty steel battery tray that's going to hold 2 Group 34 batteries, which are sold separately. This top lid comes with all completely pre-wired out of the box for you, so there's no wiring involved at all. All the wires line right up with the battery post, so there's no guesswork on how to install it. You got a smart isolator that handles connecting and disconnecting the batteries for you automatically. You've got a power and ground bus bar here for hooking up your accessories. You got a boost button built in, so if your cranking battery happens to be too low and you can't start the engine for some reason, you hit that boost button one time and that'll let you jump start from your second battery. All heavy-duty wires, everything's sealed up. We've got extra thick adhesive lined heat shrink, so it's the best of everything. And a small bag of hardware has everything that you need to get it installed. And as for batteries, any Group 34 size battery will fit our tray. That refers to the industry standard size of the battery. So Group 34 is one you need to fit our tray. Now, I like the Odyssey brand of batteries. The Odyssey PC 1500 has the most cold cranking amps and the most reserve time that we could shoehorn under the hood. We offer these as an option through our website, so if you want to have everything dropped off at your door, just add that to your options when you're checking out. Or if you want to get these from a local battery supply store, that's fine. You're looking for the 34-PC 1500. Make sure you don't get a 34R. That one will have the positive and negative post reversed, and those won't line up with all of our wires. So make sure you get a regular Group 34. Okay, let's get started by taking a look under the hood at the factory battery location. The first thing we're going to do is get this battery out of the way. Use a 10mm socket to loosen up the post clamp bolts here and here, and the clamp that holds the battery down right here. My truck is only about 5 or 6 months old, and you can already see some off-gassing around these vents of this lead acid battery. So if your battery is kind of nasty in here, you might want to wear some gloves. Okay, next step is to pull out the stock battery tray. There we go. That's almost comical. Okay. Let me show you what's going on inside the engine bay here. It looks like there's lots of room for the new batteries, but that space actually fills up pretty quickly. To the back side, we've got the factory fuse box mount here that's kind of in the way, along with this tab for the battery hold down. And then on this side, you've got wires going into the fuse box that kind of get in the way a little bit. Over here is the oil fill neck. And we got to watch out for some hoses going to the radiator and the air conditioning. And then right back here, we're going to watch out for the back side of the headlight assembly. Okay, looking straight down in here, there's really not any factory mounting locations to tie the new battery tray into. So it's going to sit on top of this shelf here where the stock battery was. And then we're also going to distribute some of that weight down here to this lower shelf. You'll notice there's a wire harness down here that's held in place with a little Christmas tree clippy, and another one over here. So you might want to go ahead and move this out of the way just so it's a little bit easier to drop the tray down in here. Once we pop that loose, it's a good idea just to go ahead and disconnect that, because it's going to kind of be in our way when we get ready to mark our holes to drill. So we'll just disconnect that and tuck it out of the way for the moment. It's very tight in here when you put those batteries in. If you need just a little extra clearance, you can take a saw or a cut-off wheel and remove this little panel clip that holds the fuse box lid on. Don't worry, it's not going to affect the fuse box lid. It'll still stay on there nice and secure. So I've already cut this piece off. So you can see the part that I removed off the side of the lid and the side of the fuse box. All right, now we're going to drop our new tray down in here. We got the ground wire tucked out of the way as much as possible. We're going to drop it in. The long legs are going to go down to the lower mounting shelf. We're going to watch and make sure we don't hit any wires down there. We're going to watch the wire bundle over here, go under that. And we should be clearing the oil fill neck. We should be clearing the wires going into the fuse box. And also double check right down in here, make sure you're not pinching any of these wires. Let's take a closer look because I know it's kind of hard to see down in here. You'll notice the 4 legs will line up on the flat surface of the factory battery mounting location. Notice this one right down here, there is a factory hole. Our leg should be just to the side of that hole, so we're going to drill new holes there to drop in our well nuts. There you can see that one lines up on the edge, and there's where that one sits, and there's that one. The leg on this side is under that wire harness. Make sure that doesn't get pinched. Notice the leg down low there goes right beside that little raised stamped area, and same on the other one. You might want to push these wires over just a little bit. It doesn't take much. Just want to make sure they're not going to be rubbing. On this side, you should have a little bit of clearance so you're not touching the oil fill neck. Here by the fuse box, we're going to be all the way up against this little molded rib line. Right down in there, the tray will be all the way up against that little stock bracket. Here's a better shot of where I trimmed the little clips off the side of the fuse box lid. Now, since there's really no good factory mounting locations to tie off of or to measure from, what we've got to do is set the batteries down in here, get the position marked for the tray, and then we're going to take the batteries back out and drill some holes down here for the well nuts to secure the tray to the bottom. You're going to set this one in first with a negative here closest to the factory negative and the positive over here by the corner. You're going to slide this all the way to the fender side first. Now you're going to want to look down in here and make sure you're all the way up against the edge of the tray. You might have to push it over a little bit and wiggle your tray around a little bit to get it all the way in there. Right now I'm bumping on the back side of the headlight mount, so I'm going to move the tray around a little bit so I can get the battery all the way over. All right, looks like we're all the way to the edge. And we also want to keep an eye on the wire harness going into the fuse box. Make sure you're not pinching anything over there. Now we're going to take the second battery and drop it in. And it's going to be in the opposite orientation. The positive is going to be here by the factory positive harness. That one's going to drop right in. You've got a little bit of play to get the battery seated down in there. You should be able to remove the oil fill cap and put it back on with no interference at all. So this ground wire here that goes to the fender is kind of close to our battery post. So we're going to take a 10mm socket and just rotate that down 90 degrees. Okay, so at this point, just stop for a minute, take a look at what you got in here. Make sure you're not interfering with the wires over here. Make sure you got clearance to your oil fill cap. Make sure you're not pinching any wires down below here. And you should have just a tiny bit of clearance to the back of the headlight assembly in this corner. All right, now at this point, once you feel like the batteries are in there in a pretty good position, we're gonna make a mark and then we're gonna take the batteries out and drill our holes. So we want to make a mark right here so that we can make sure that this battery tray does not move when we pull these batteries back out to drill the holes for the well nuts. So we want to make a little indicator mark. I like to line up with this hole right here in the tray over to the side of the fender. And that'll just give us a visual reference to make sure this tray doesn't shift around when we take the batteries out. Now I'm just going to use a pencil to make a mark right here across to the factory sheet metal. I'm going to draw a line right here. And that's going to line up right about there. There we go. All right, let's pull the batteries back out. Try to be as careful as you can not to move that tray too much. Now we should have the batteries out and our alignment marks still line up here. Now we're going to take a center punch and punch these 6 locations for the well nuts. Now getting a punch on these 2 legs down low here may be a little bit tricky. You might want to use a longer center punch. Just make sure that your tray doesn't move. Once all your holes are center punched, we can take the tray back out and drill these holes out to 1/2 inch. Now I finished off these holes with a 1/2 inch drill bit just to help deburr those edges. All right, let's clean up these shavings with a little vacuum real quick. And we'll use a little touch-up pen to paint the edges of the bare metal. Okay, while that dries a second, let's go grab the well nuts out of the hardware baggie. All right, we're gonna drop our well nuts down in here, just like that. Now the tray will sit on top of these well nuts, and then we'll bolt down the tray. Remember to line up your mark right here, make sure the tray is in about the same location, and take a look, see how close you got. Looks pretty good. All right, now we'll take our washers and our stainless bolts and bolt the tray down. Now take a 7/16 socket and tighten those bolts down. I found it's easier to use a cordless drill socket driver to get these bolts down there snug, and then you can come back and double check your alignment, make sure the tray hasn't moved, and then tighten them up by hand. All right, now we can see that tray is in there nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. That looks real good. So now we're ready to drop our batteries back in. Drop this one in and slide it all the way to the side. If you're bumping the headlight assembly, just kind of wiggle it to the side a little bit. Make sure it's all the way by the fender. Drop in our cranking battery. Now if these don't sit nice and level, that means you might need to scoot this one over a little bit more, but they should sit flush all the way down to the bottom. There we go. Make sure those are nice and flat across there. Just do a final check. It's going to be very tight over in this corner. Make sure you're not pinching any wires down here. AC and radiator hoses should not be touching the tray at all. If you disconnected that wire down here earlier, just make sure that that's reconnected, because I forgot it. All right, now we're ready to set the top lid on here. Now you'll remember the lid comes right out of the box, all completely pre-wired for you. So when we set this down, the lion head logo should be facing the fender. All these wires will just line right up. This post will line right up here. Now we'll use the serrated flange head bolts to hold the lid down. Use a 1/2 inch socket to snug these down. We'll kind of do a crisscross pattern here to snug them down. You don't have to bend the lid or anything. Just get it nice and snug. Now over here is our factory positive connection. That's going to go here in our cranking battery. Now this one is our cranking battery because it's got the factory positive, which goes to the fuse box, the starter, and the alternator. So we're going to use a 12mm socket to remove this nut and attach our wire. Now we can tighten up this post clamp with a 10mm. All right, now there's a little bit more going on with the ground clamp over here, so let me show you how we're going to hook this up. First off, we're going to take this factory bolt, the factory post clamp out of here. We're going to remove this, but keep this little square washer on the back side. We're going to reuse this square washer. So our factory positive post clamp had this stud sticking up to make it easy to attach this wire. Over here, it doesn't have that kind of a vertical stud sticking up, so we're going to have to put the wires on the side of the post clamp. So to do that, you're going to use the longer post clamp bolt that comes with the kit. We're going to put that in from the fender side of the post clamp first. You might have to thread that in because it's pretty tight. Then we're going to put the square washer back on there. Now we're going to put one nut on there to use as a spacer. And this nut will also be used to tighten up the post clamp. Make sure that's seated all the way down to the bottom. We'll go ahead and tighten this down with a 7/16 socket and a wrench. And we'll just move this wire back out of our way a little bit so we can get in there a little easier. Now we want this post clamp facing kind of this direction so that this wire will go on there and line up like that. And then the long wire goes on the end and lines up right about there. We'll top that off with the washer and the nut. Now we can tighten up the other post clamp bolts with a 1/2 inch socket. Just make sure these are seated all the way down to the bottom of the battery post. It's a little tight in here for the accessory battery positive, so you might want to use a wrench for this one. A few things you want to check: make sure all your post clamps are nice and tight. If you can wiggle these at all, it will cause you some bizarre electrical gremlins. So make sure all these wires are nice and tight. Here's how your finished ground post clamp should look. Now you can see my red wires for my LED lights right back there. You've got a little bit of room to route your wires between the batteries and the fender. Right down here you can tuck your inline fuses and relays in this little space. Bring your positive wires right around here. all your low amp drawing accessories like LED lights, your CB, that kind of thing, run to any of these 8 small screw terminals on the power bus bar. Your high amp accessories like your winch cables or stereo amplifiers or an S-Pod, anything like that, you can go to the center stud of the bus bars and then route all your ground wires right across here. Same thing. Small ring terminals go to the small screws. High amp cables go to the center stud. Now, if you want to hook up jumper cables to jump start someone else, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can hook your alligator clips right to the center stud of the power and ground bus bars here. Or I like to go straight to the factory positive and negative post clamps. That's going to give you the most direct path down to the alternator and starter. When you're jump starting someone, make sure the little red status light is on. When the light is on, that means the batteries are connected together. When it's off, it means the batteries are isolated. So the smart isolator is going to link the batteries together through this solenoid right here whenever it sees one of your batteries above 13.2 volts for 2 minutes. So the best way to explain that is it allows the alternator to charge up your cranking battery first for a couple of minutes, then it links these contacts together through here and it'll allow it to charge up your auxiliary battery as well. And then they're going to stay connected together and the little red light on the isolator will be on. They're going to stay connected together until it sees the batteries drop below 12.7 volts for 1 minute. Then it'll automatically open up the contacts inside of the solenoid, opens the contacts to separate the batteries, then everything that you have wired up to the power and ground bus bars will continue running on the second battery only. And the whole point of that is to protect your cranking battery from getting drained down too far by your accessories. Now, one thing you got to remember is your factory positive, it goes over here and feeds power into the factory fuse box. So everything in the fuse box always runs on the cranking battery. So your radio, your headlights, your dome lights, interior power outlets, that sort of thing, will always run on the cranking battery, so just be aware of that. Our system is designed to protect the cranking battery from being drained by your accessories. All right, that's all there is to it. We're all done. So if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to give me a call, or you can shoot me an email at info@genesisoffroad.com. If this video was helpful to you, please consider subscribing. That really does help us out. You'll be the first to know about our new videos. We'll be doing some more tech tips, and we've got some new products coming soon, so make sure you don't miss that. If you want to know more about our Tacoma, check out the links in the description below. I've got the links to all the great companies that make these great parts. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the trails.